I'm so excited today to have Sharon Chuter as my debut guest on the Share a Voice podcast. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start by saying the fact that, for me, Share a Voice and this podcast is all about being fearless, fierce, and you embody all of that as someone.
Thank you.
Like you and your brand are rebellious and bold and just radical. So yeah, that's why I cannot think of a more suitable first guest for me.
No, thank you. And congratulations on doing this as well. I mean, it's always exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Look at your doggy.
I know he's been there licking me from the floor, only for me to give him attention. And now there you go. So yeah, this is Leo, the CEO. He's the CEO of UOMA Beauty. So of course he always makes a cameo in everything I do.
I love him. He looks so fluffy.
He is. He's the best cuddle buddy. So yes.
Well, next time, hopefully I'll meet you in person and be able to cuddle him as well.
Cuddle, exactly. No, but he's hilarious because even like a lot of interviews I've had, he'll just be chilling on the desk, catching some Z's, and then whenever he likes, he lifts his head off and go, "We still here? Okay, whatever." And then just goes back to, so he's always super calm, and because I take him everywhere. So yeah, so he's my four-legged companion and my best friend in the world.
Oh, I love it. So I wanted to start a bit from the beginning. So you're born and raised in Nigeria.
Yes, please.
And I mean, you're even just like your background and your childhood is so fascinating. But I heard you tell a story about how, well, first of all, that you were channeling your inner Beyonce when you were little, right? I mean, as we all are, right?
Exactly. You gotta channel the queen, right? There's only one queen that we recognize, and that's the queen bee. So what can we say?
100%. So I heard you tell a story about how you're credited with bringing Revlon to Nigeria.
Yes.
So can you share a bit about that? Because to me, that illustrates your fearlessness, I mean, as a teenager. So
yes, it also illustrates, like just being a bit of a loony bin, like, and that's me, in terms of, I think, that's sometimes the beauty of teenage, that sometimes I try and hold on to the fact that you don't really think through things properly, in that you don't think about consequences. You haven't yet established as much barriers, because essentially it's like being a child, right? Your imagination is just broad, and that gets beaten out of you because everybody tells you what reality is, right? And I think sometimes it's that naivety that creates magic. And that's the naivety that I've carried my whole life, in terms of being a teenager and not understanding. You just don't go and reach out to Mac and say, "Come to Nigeria." You just don't go and reach out. Literally, the customer service email. It's not even like I knew anybody who was giving me the tea. I just like, I want to bring this guy to Nigeria, and not having a voice even tell me that they're going to say no. It's not possible. They don't give contracts to people they don't know. They're going to wait until they meet a big distributor and whatever. So I just went for it, and I reached out to everybody, who I could find online, because remember, back in this day, many people hadn't gone online yet. There was only a few companies on the internet, and it's still, e-commerce was non-existent back then. So you only was like, "Oh, this is who Mac is. That's it." And then here's how to contact our support. And so this was the kind of channel that I used to reach out to all these people. And Revlon responded positively because they had been trying to enter the local market. Of course, they didn't know who I was or whatever. So they thought I was, a big company, and, I was pretending like I was too. They didn't know they were talking to a teenager at the time. And they had issues coming in because there was a regulation issue, like in Nigeria, because in the past, when a lot of regulations came through, around formaldehyde or around lead, what brands did, and this is the brands for you, right? They just went and dumped it in other countries, in what they consider third world countries. So all the inventory they couldn't sell in America anymore, they couldn't sell in Europe because of all these ingredients that were banned. They continued to make them and then just ship them off to Nigeria and liquidate all those things in Nigeria and a lot of the African countries. So as a result, the regulatory body put a really strong rule classifying cosmetics as medicine. So it's almost akin to when you're out here, imagine when you're registering a product with SPF, it has to go through the OTC process because it becomes classified as a medicine. So in Nigeria at the time, beauty products were considered almost at the same level as an OTC and over-the-counter medicine. For those who don't know what OTC is, over-the-counter medicine. And so you needed to register each and every single product, but also each SKU variation, because obviously the ingredient listing changes slightly. Anytime there's an ingredient listing variation, you had to, no matter how small it was, even though it was literally unrecognizable. And to be honest, not even if the ingredients were the same, you had to submit a whole new file per shade. So you think about Revlon with over 2,000 SKUs, it was impossible. They couldn't do that. Like even the manpower to pull together 2,000 plus dossiers is ridiculous, and let alone the cost. So that was the reason they couldn't go in. And so long story short, I found the loophole in the system, which meant that if you had one central point of location and you were classified as a retailer, then you didn't have to, you got an exemption, and you could do what at the time was called global listing. That was brought in to allow supermarkets come in, because a lot of supermarkets were coming in, but the brands they were carrying weren't in the country already. So to then expect a supermarket to register on behalf of their brands over 150,000 products, which is about how much a supermarket will carry, especially when it's the bigger mega marts kind of thing, it's just not doable. So they created what was called almost like a bulk registration, but they had to have an address so they can locate you, right? Which is why you had to be running a physical store, so that if anything ever got flagged that this product is bad, or it came to their knowledge and you're in that list, they can come to you and then physically make you pull off all those products with one control, as opposed like distributor has a different level of control, because you're distributing it leaves you and it's gone. So recalling it is the bigger problem. So anyway, long story short, we did that, and I brought Revlon to Nigeria and ended up just realizing I wasn't ready for it. You know, it was an exciting adventure. And for me, it was like, essentially, created a business and flicked it in less than a year, right? Because what I did was sell off the distribution agreement to somebody else who was capable of doing it, and then walked off. To be honest, now in hindsight, I mean, it was a terrible deal for me, but I didn't know any better. I was young. I didn't really care. I was more about, this is exciting, and, you know, start of a new learning and a new pathway, because that was also why I came into beauty, because for the first time, you know, like you said, I was trying to be a singer back then. After, you know, being an academic. So it was really good to sort of see that, oh, maybe I do have academic side of me. I do have a street smart side of me, which is that business kind of commercial side. And I do have a creative side of me. And I felt like in beauty, all of this could come into play and sort of amalgamate to create this kind of like super talent that could be very useful in the beauty industry. So yeah, so that's the story there.
So what, you know, even as a child, for example, were you kind of like, did people see you as someone who was like serving sass even as a child, for example?
Well, yeah, because I was always loudmouthed, you know, like I've always been that person. But the only difference as a child, it was not taken well. You know, right now I'm an adult, so I can do whatever I want to do in a certain way. And then especially the more successful you are, people let you off, you know, because it's almost like, oh, she's eccentric. And that's sort of where they classify you into. But when you're a kid, everybody expects you to conform. Conformity is not accepted in children. And when you don't conform, you're odd, you're different, you're strange, you're weird. None of the good words are used for you. And your parents are almost encouraged to get that non-conformity out of you, because you're considered a problematic child. Why would a child be so vocal about their opinion? They shouldn't have an opinion. You're a damn 5-year-old. You should shut up and take whatever is given to you. And so that was really like always a conflict of my life, in that I've always been outspoken. And you know, I hated myself. I loathed myself as a child, because I wanted to be like everybody so bad. I just wanted to, I just didn't know how. And even when I tried to be, I failed at it, you know, and I'm like, I'm trying to be nice. And even in my niceness, it's still like, yeah, your eyes are too, you know, because of my attitude, you know, it's just there. And so I just learned to know that I was a rude person. I was a not nice person, and I wasn't marriage material. You know, I was never going to get married, because no man was going to live with a woman who talked back at him and who had such strong opinions. So that was sort of what you sort of get beaten up with as a kid. You're useless, you're this, you're that, you would never be this, you would never be that. And then you sort of, for me, ended up being a gift, to be honest. It was a gift that I wasn't a popular kid. It was a gift that I was different, because firstly, you know, I wasn't considered beautiful either. My cheekbones are too high, my lips are too big, my eyes are too big. All the things now that are considered trendy were big problems for me. I'm too skinny, you know. People, wow, you have HIV and everything, and joke. And so what he taught me to do was not really care about people's opinion. right? In that I live, when I say that, people think I'm making it up, when I mean that I do not give like a flying F what a person thinks about me. Because think about it, how ridiculous is that? I don't even know you. Why would I care what you think about me, right? So I think the gift that I gave to me, having that kind of a childhood where you weren't popular, you were isolated, it makes you go insular, and you have to like really search within yourself, because you become your own best friend. And you start listening to nobody but yourself, in terms of the only person I believe is me. So, if I want to feel beautiful, I have to be the one who's going like, damn, I look good. Then I feel beautiful, right? And then when other people say it, it's like, it's nice and all, but it's like, yeah, great. I'm happy you acknowledge what I already know, And so sometimes people like to go, like my sister goes, like, you're a really weird person in terms of you come across sometimes as arrogant, because I'll wear a dress and someone will be like, nice dress. I'm like, right? It's beautiful, isn't it? Right? Whereas the expectation is for you to go, oh, this little thing, I just threw it on. Well, I didn't just throw it on. I spent a whole damn week planning that outfit. So what are you talking? I went to a store, found the outfit, thought, yeah, she looks good. I probably tried it on in store and looked at myself and I'm like, and then walked out of the store, bought that outfit, then had an occasion, planned it out, like, I'm going to wear this, I'm going to pair with that shoe, I'm going to put this jewelry on it, I'm going to do my makeup to look like this, I'm going to do my hair like that. And then when I come out and you go like, it looks good, you're offended because I said, I know. Of course I freaking knew that it looked good. That's why I came out looking like this. So, my reaction to things for a lot of people is strange, because that's narcissism or whatever. I'm like, no, that's authenticity. Because you are being disingenuous by saying, oh, this old thing, I only threw it. You did not throw it on. It took you a whole damn week to put that outfit together. So how does it improve our lives that it's just this scripts that everybody gets on how to be fake, right? And so yeah, so for me, it was just, the lesson, what for me was just trust yourself, love yourself, and listen to other people, but you are in the driver's seat. And your GPS is purpose, right? Your GPS is purpose, and that's telling me turn left and turn right. And that's the one I trust more than anybody else, even myself, because sometimes I'm doubting it. I'm like, yeah, are you sure you want me to do this? Okay, you did say turn left. I'm going to turn left and not argue with you. But I think, yeah, that was the biggest gift in terms of being one of the misfits.
Yeah, I love that. Misfit is such a good word. Did you have, like, growing up, I mean, of course, Beyonce, obviously, but did you have like other beauty icons? Like, comes to mind, like, just while speaking with you, is Grace Jones.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she's beautiful, isn't she? But also she's beautiful. She's rebellious. To be honest, when I was younger, I didn't really care that much about Beyonce. If I'm completely honest, I sort of got into Beyonce, of course, circa 2003, which, I mean, I was already 16. I was then 2003. I was 16. Was when I first, really got into like Destiny's Child and all of that. And then when she went solo, actually, when Destiny's Child went solo, I was Team Kelly Rowland, right? I was very much about
Dilemma.
Kelly. I was rooting for Kelly Rowland. So I always joke about the whole Beyonce thing, but I love her. I think, to be honest, I clued into Beyonce in Dangerously in Love and then switched off until Lemonade. And Lemonade, I came back to Beyonce. So a lot of my adoration for Beyonce happened much later in life, post Lemonade, post this world where she's become this real force, and, is very clear on her voice, has been such an advocate for the Black community. That has really been my admiration with Beyonce. But in terms of like beauty icons, I mean, Diana Ross is, I mean, where do we start? Like Diana, she is like goals. Like, she was just in every single way. If I had to name one beauty icon I would say Diana Ross, hands down. No comparison. The woman is stylish, elegant, sophisticated, every single thing that you can put in there. She is the OG diva, as the word diva should be. And so for me, yes, if I had to choose one person that had the most influence on my life in terms of style and beauty, in terms of just being goals, and if I could have a poster all over my room, it would be this person over and over again. It'll be Auntie Diana Ross.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love Tracy Ellis Ross also.
Yeah, Tracy is gorgeous. She's amazing. But yeah, Diana is just so, up till now, I will see images of her. I mean, sometimes I laugh about my Instagram grid. Sometimes can feel like it's a shrine to Diana Ross, because I think she's the most reposted person that I post all the time. Between my brand and my IG, Diana Ross comes up a lot, to the point now sometimes I'll collect something of Diana. I'm like, I'm not posting it because it's like, yeah, no. So Diana is my ultimate style and beauty icon.
Okay, I love that. That makes sense. So then it's so interesting. I know you went to Australia, right? You were in
Yes.
Perth. So
Yes.
what brought you there?
A man. Always a
Okay.
man. Yes, exactly. That's the only reason why you pack up and go halfway across the planet. Because I'm sure y'all realize Australia and Nigeria are literally polar opposites of the planet. It's about 37-hour journey to get from one to the other. So it's not, especially when you talk about Perth. I mean, Perth is like, yeah, you know. So it was a guy. He was from Perth, and you know, he had spent years in Africa and wanted to go back home. And so I decided to move back home with him, and he became marriage number one.
Wow. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. And then, so while you were in Australia, that's where you worked at Pepsi?
I worked at L'Oreal in Australia. I worked at Pepsi in Australia. I worked in Novartis in Australia, which is a pharmaceutical company. I worked with Louis Vuitton, more Hennessy, with Benefit Cosmetics. So I did a few companies. Most of my professional career was in Australia.
I had heard you say that you always wanted to work for LVMH.
Yes.
So
Yes.
okay, so I know you worked in operations at Benefits, right?
Yes, exactly. So I always, like, you know, I had a list of companies I always wanted to work for. And I was so lucky that I ended up working with a lot of them. Like, you know, pretty much most of my career, I ended up working with companies that I already fantasized about working for. L'Oreal was one of them. I always wanted to work with L'Oreal. PepsiCo was goals for me for the longest time. I wanted to work with Pepsi because of Indira Nooyi, being the first woman of color to take on a role of that prominence, being an immigrant. You know, she inspired me so much. And, you know, that's why they say representation matters, because when I saw Indira Nooyi step in and take on the CEO role for PepsiCo and then just kick ass, like, woman was just bomb, you know. So that made me feel like, oh, I can because she was. You know, I can because she's an immigrant. She didn't come from that country, and to be able to come in and just do some good hard work. So I wanted to work in that company because I wanted to sort of be part of that magic and under somehow in periphery under her leadership. And so that happened. And every single time when it manifests, I'm like, whoa, you know, I wanted to work with GlaxoSmithKline. I ended up working with Novartis, and while I was there, they merged with GlaxoSmithKline. So I can't make this shit up. Like, literally, it was hilarious. Like, a lot of companies I tick, I ended up going through all of them. And then, of course, LVMH, I wanted to work with LVMH for the longest time. And here's actually a funny story. When I went and interviewed for the job with Benefit Cosmetics, I didn't realize it was part of LVMH, because I didn't have a good awareness of Benefit Cosmetics at the time. I know it was a very established brand, but I mean, they don't really cater to Black people. So it's not really a brand that was in my kind of attention set. So I discovered that brand when I applied for a job with a brand. I know it sounds really bad. I didn't really know much about the brand until then I discovered more. And I remember it was when I got an email back. So I had made it through different interviews, and then the regional heads were coming over, and that was going to be the last interview. And then I got an email, and for the first time I noticed, oh no, actually that's not correct, because it was still all at benefitcosmetics.com. And I think it was until I had got to offer stage, and when I got the first letterhead paper and it had the LVMH, I was like, it's LVMH. Okay. So it was either that or it was the email address, because it was either that or the email I received. Then I realized it was at LVMH.com. And I was like, Benefit is part of LVMH. And then I researched and found that yes, it was. So it was very interesting that even that one I had got all the way before I discovered that, oh my God, I'm going to be working with LVMH, and another dream come true.
Were you like, universe, I see you?
Oh, look, y'all, that's the story of my life all the time. I'm always like, how? Like, sometimes even my sister will remind me that, oh, you know, you always talked about doing this as a kid. I was like, did I? And then I'm like, yeah, I did, you know. So it's just so funny in how life goes full circle. And that's why I believe a lot in the law of attraction. You know, you think it, you want it, you wish it, and it happens. And you work for it. That's the most important part. And I literally just had that conversation in another podcast I did today, saying, because they asked me about luck and what role luck plays in the life of anybody. And I was like, there's no such thing as luck. Luck is the intersection between preparation and opportunity. That's what luck is. right? If you have opportunities and you're not prepared, you will never realize those opportunities. And then you are unlucky, but there was probably a lot of opportunities that were around you. You couldn't even see because you weren't even prepared. So you couldn't even see it, right? But when you're prepared, and same thing, you know, if you're prepared and opportunities don't come, then you're not lucky, right? So it's always that intersection. And for me, the way I've lived my life was always to say, I cannot control opportunity. Opportunity is something that just happens by chance. That's the part where it goes back to fate. For people who believe in fate, like myself, I believe what's meant for me will never miss me, and what misses me was never meant for me, right? So that's where the opportunity piece comes in. But what I can control is my preparation. Because that's the point where I feel like a lot of people, you're meant for a lot of things, but you never prepared for it. And so when even the opportunities came, you weren't able to capture it. Or how many times has that happened to you in life where something is presented to you and you're so disappointed with yourself and how you handled it, because you understand that that could have been so much bigger and God knows where you would have been, but you just were not ready for it. You know, I remember when I auditioned to be on Broadway, right? I was not ready for that, you know, but it was a great opportunity. I ended up being literally in front of Jay Binder. Jay Binder, when it comes to Lion King and everything, he's like the one who casted even for Dreamgirls, the movie, right? And auditioned Beyonce and everything. I was literally in front of Jay Binder for a private audition, and I did nothing with it because I was not prepared and I wasn't ready. And at that time, I had already given up on music, and it was just a thing. So that's why I go about preparation and opportunity. For other people, that could have been their big break. That could have been the moment that they literally carved out the pathway to being a star. How many more of those moments have I missed? I will never know, right? Because I stopped preparing myself for a career in entertainment and instead started preparing myself to be a worker and then eventually an entrepreneur. So it's so interesting.
That's so interesting. But I mean, when you identified the void, like the space in the market or the gap in the market for UOMA Beauty, I mean, I know you launched the business super quickly, right?
Yeah, I did. I mean, for itself, I mean, from when I quit to when I launched it was about, what was it? 12 plus 7, 19 months. So about 20 months in total.
Okay. So you launched in April 2019, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, I know you had launched with 108 SKUs.
Yes.
Right?
Because I hate myself, apparently.
So it's like, I kind of feel like, and I know you had said yes already to Ulta and Selfridges, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I feel kind of there's like a theme in your life where it's like, okay, this sounds kind of bananas or crazy, but let's do it.
I know, exactly. And that's, to be honest, that's what excites me, right? You know, I love it when things are impossible. It really sparks a fire to get it done. It's very costly to my physical form because, you know, I always joke about, tell people my mental strength is like I'm stronger up there than my physical body is, because my physical body is a woman who's a size 0 and she's a 5'3", right? I'm a very skinny woman and whatever. So I'm not the person who's going to punch somebody and they fall and collapse on the floor. My punch is not that strong, right? But if my mind was a punch, I would be stronger than Anthony Joshua, right? You know, who was the world heavyweight champion. So in boxing. And so for me, you know, it's always, I love, you know, what I, once again, and because I believe so much in purpose, I believe an opportunity will not present itself if I wasn't supposed to take it, right? So I live by the good old Richard Branson philosophy, take it and figure it out later. And that's what I've always done. Like, it's just sort of wing it. There are some opportunities I don't take because there's something off with it, but there are some opportunities that present themselves if it was so good. And the only reason I should say no is because I can't put the effort to do it. And that's where I go, like, I would never not do something because I cannot put the effort or the energy. If it's worthwhile, if it's an opportunity, and it ended up being a gift that I launched in 2 countries at once, even though that would have been crazy. Because when we started seeing some unique challenges in the Ulta model, we had something to compare it to. Now, if we had just gone with Ulta like Flesh Beauty did, where your business falters, you'll pack up. You have nowhere to go because you don't know if it's the retailer. And a lot of times with new business, there are dynamics like that where you can be having issues, but the issue might be the retailer, not necessarily your brand. If you don't have anything to benchmark that against, you are solely everything that happens. You go, it's the brand, it's the brand. Whereas a lot of times, and sometimes it's not the brand, it's the complete execution of the brand. And sometimes it could actually be the retailer that is stifling it in terms of not having that experience to execute brand new brands. Because remember now, retailers are doing something that's not organic to them. Naturally, retailers were platforms where people scaled. And then now, because of the popularity of founder-led brands, retailers are now open to launching brands from the scratch. Some retailers, and this is the challenge, some retailers don't take the time to step back and understand what is required, right? Versus when I'm scaling a brand, even if it be I'm scaling a brand that has come from D2C to a physical retail, is completely different to a brand that's launching from scratch with zero equity. And especially when there's no celebrity behind the brand. And color cosmetics, there's a very challenging kind of space. So I think that's where it was really good for me, because I was able to have two different data points that acted completely differently. And that really informed the future strategy of the brands, the thing we must do, the things we mustn't do. When we launched in Ulta, we had a 3-foot gondola to put 108 SKUs. That is tiny space. We couldn't bring out the brand DNA and everything. The selection of stores, I mean, we were literally, like, for lack of better word, ghetto stores. Like, they threw us out there to whoop whoop. The brand is a very metro brand. So what we found out was, at a point, we were making more money from one Selfridges store than 203 Ulta Beauty stores, because the Selfridges store was on Oxford Street, melting pot of cultures. So you think about all these things that are logical now, that now in dealing with other retailers, now I'm just like blanket. This is what's gonna happen. If you can't do it, there's no point in me even doing it, because I've now lived through it to actually see, no, this is what the brand needs. The brand needs room to breathe, because part of the identity of the brand is a lot of DNA and creativity. So we need room to breathe. We cannot squeeze things into a tiny bit of space, and it's not what's what doing is what doing well or not doing it at all. And also location is the number one thing of real estate, right? Trends start in a city, especially this kind of trends, and then move into the suburbs. So when you're in suburban stores and you're a brand that is super urban, super forward thinking, is a fundamental mismatch. So if we didn't have those multiple data points, it's even hard to come back to Ulta to go, hey guys, here are the things we must do better. If we were to, really explode this brand to the degree that it needs to go to, because look at the runaway success. Like, me was successful in Ulta, but, in Selfridges, it was a star. It was just a star. And that's why in the UK and around the world, a lot of our expansion has come from there, because people have come in there, other buyers, and experienced it and gone, wow, this brand really changes the look of the beauty hall, because it's completely different, And so when you're not really, so that's why it was like, for me, a lot of things that for other people was like, oh, that's crazy. And that's why I give that example. You shouldn't have done that, because you could have always expanded into Selfridges in year 2. Maybe if I didn't do Selfridges in year 1, I would have had no year 2. Maybe. So that's why for me, I sort of like follow it. And, it's not saying that the Ulta business is not good or whatever. It's great, but it's just giving some, in the first year of business, it's a classroom. It takes you through so much learning. And that was what we learned, through the first year. It was just like, hey, you see all these regional stores? Yeah, let's just pluck them out. They do nothing for us. We need to be inner city, because even the data, our Google searches, our Instagram, everything is coming from real inner city and real places that are cultural melting points. And Selfridges helped us validate that data, that was actually correct.
I mean, your mission with UOMA is so it's so huge and so important. So I think a big part of your purpose seems to be just shaking up the status quo, right? So
Yes.
what was the moment where you said, like, what compelled you to launch UOMA and say, like, we need more representation in beauty at this point? Because I feel so many brands there were brands who try to say that, but what compelled you to just be like, enough is enough? We have to be the most inclusive brand in terms of foundations and all the different skin tones.
Yes, I think for me, the birth of UOMA wasn't really ever, that's the sort of difference in my business, right? I didn't set up my business because I went to create a sexy business strategy plan and, oh, here's a white space and whatever. It just came out of my personal frustration, as a woman of color, existing through corporates and, just literally just see, I always tell people I survived through my corporate career, and getting to that end of survival, it became, what is the right point to hop off this train, because it's unsustainable to be here forever. I will literally be a shell of myself and I will be broken, right? I was already broken. And then also understanding, like I always tell people, for me was to understand, when I turned 30, I started really thinking about life in a much deeper way than I'd ever thought about it before. Life became more about purpose. I started asking, why do I do what I do again? And at that point in time, the only answer I had was to make a Frenchman richer. That was all I had. I had nothing to go beyond. Why am I here working? I don't like the way I'm treated a lot of times here. And it's not exclusive to me, just a lot of company cultures are not great, right? So I don't like it here. There is such a thing as culpability in complacency. I come to work every day, take my paycheck, and I go, you know what? Somebody else is going to change the world, right? Even though I know that the brand I'm working for makes concealers in 3 shades, and I understand more than anybody the psychological impact that has on people, because there is a financial case to this, which is very strong, in terms of, it's crazy that brands all fight over the same woman's wallet. They want to only serve the white woman, right? And so y'all been serving her for decades now, right? She is oversaturated. She's overwhelmed with choices. And so now all of you are spending incredible amount of money because now she's becoming more picky and picky. I want vegan, I want cruelty free, I want clean, I want natural, and you're okay, okay, another $5 billion to do that. Okay, let's do it, right? And then you have a huge audience base that are just going, I just want anything. Just give me you see that other thing you're about to discontinue? I'll be happy with it if you just made it in my shade. And they're like, absolutely, shut up. No. I want to spend $2 billion to go fight for this market that I'm not sure if I'm going to even win, right? So the commercial argument stacks up, to a ridiculous level. I always tell people, the world is getting browner by the minute. Love it or hate it, it's just the reality of the world. Right now there's 1 billion people in Africa. By 2050, there will be 3 billion people in Africa. Whether you like it or not, it is emerging again as the powerhouse that it once was. Let's not forget that it was a powerhouse until all of this slavery malarkey that took that away. It is reemerging because the children of Africa are rediscovering themselves and the history that was erased and taking that strength to push things forward. So for me, I already had this nagging passion on so many levels on challenging this stale industry that just refuses to move forward and blazing the trail for a new world of not only, because that's why I hate the word inclusivity. When people ask me, what does your brand stand for? I'm like, it is bullshit to actually say my brand stands for inclusivity, because that should be status quo, right? That cannot be your competitive advantage, even though right now it's sad that it is, but that's not even a sustainable competitive advantage because everybody can follow. Fenty created 40 shades. By the next year, everybody had 40 shades, right? Everybody had 40 shades because that's what the market does. It's also why, as a beauty community, people just think, oh, it's just foundation. That's where people are left at. But it's not. It's every single place. It's like I just launched a mascara. And the first time I'm actually talking to women of color and making them realize, do you know why you don't enjoy mascaras? They're like, yeah, I've never enjoyed mascaras because there's never been a mascara that's been built for you. And, it's in that moment, I'm having a lot of women of color going to therapy mode going, actually, that's true. This and that and that and that, right? That's inclusivity, to think about how does this thing relates to everybody. So what we do and my brand, what we stand for is authentic self-love and self-expression. That's where we come in. That's really where we come in. We're here to inspire everybody to show up every day as your raw self, and that's why I'm a convener of misfits. This is a tribe of misfits, of weirdos. Whatever reason you've been left out for me, it was the color of my skin, right? For some people, it's just plainly the size of their body. For some people, it's who they love. For some people, they're just the wrong gender because apparently men shouldn't wear makeup. And I go, hang on a second, let me take you all the way back. Makeup started in Africa, right? And it was gender neutral. Men wore eyeliners, women wore eyeliners. Men wore brow pencils, women wore brow pencils. What the hell are you talking about? I'm like, you guys take your own notion. The same thing that drives me crazy when I go into Africa now. It's such a patriarchal kind of society. That was not our culture. Our organic culture, men ruled, women ruled. Right? It was a very equal society. And so a lot of things that we've adopted, and then now we're saying these things like the new concept. It's like, no, that was the way life was built to be. So don't be telling me about gender neutrality in makeup and making that sound like a sexy word. When makeup was built, it was built for everybody to use it. Men used it, women used it. We've just evolved into this world where everything is so line divided. This is your race, this is your gender, this is who you need to be, which is not the original design of the world. And so for me, it's pretty much shaking that up and taking us back to basics whilst not being basic about it, right? So it's about, that's why I celebrate my culture and my heritage so much through the brand, because for me, it's about, I have to show up as myself 100%. And if you can't accept me as me, then we can't even have this conversation. And that's what I inspire and enable all my tribe members to do. Show up as you, have the conversation. We're not the same, we're different, but that's good. It's not bad. Because when you say that, people like shudder. When I go like, we're different. When I go, I see color. People like, I don't see color. I'm like, I'm not sure if you're blind, but I'm not. So I see color. And people are like, oh, what is that? I'm like, no, I do. Because the problem of the world is not because we're different. The problem with the world is because we refuse to accept our differences. Our differences don't make us bad. Our differences makes us beautiful and great. When I go diving, deep sea diving, I'm not there to go see one species of fish. I'm down there. I risked my whole damn life to go all the way down the sea to see diversity. I want to see all sorts of fish. You're like, oh my God, that's Nemo. I keep calling it Nemo. That's Nemo. There's this and there's that. That's what makes the world beautiful. And so that's my point in this. It's almost like what I call like just the silliness of where the world has got to. And that's what we came here to undo, to just go, let's just create this authentic tribe where we can be real. Yeah, let's keep it real here. Like, we are different, but that's not bad. That's good. I see you for who you are. I don't need you to blend to be anybody else. I see you for who you are, but it don't make a difference to me. The color of your skin is as irrelevant to me as the color of your hair. However, there are times, especially in beauty, where they become very relevant, because the way you treat blonde hair is not how you treat brunette hair. The way you treat curly hair is not how you treat straight hair. And that's why you need to see freaking color, you know? But it doesn't mean I'm not going to employ you, because in that instance, it's irrelevant. And that's why when I innovate products, it is innovated and designed that way. And then everyone's like, oh my God, all these awards, you're so innovative. I'm like, no, I just recognize that people are different, and you cannot have the same solution for all different skin. Fair skin, dark skin, completely different needs. Why are we creating the same products and going, I don't see color, use it? No, that thing is giving me a rash. Stop it, you know? Like, just, can you stop it? Because at the end of the day, we don't see color. You're the only one benefiting from it, because everything is designed for you, right? And then you're muting me and silencing me when I'm telling you that this stuff does not work for me. Like, in my skincare, I still use good old black soap. Why? Because my ancestors designed it for my damn skin. So you can keep your La Prairie. I'm going to go back there and pick up my black soap, because it does a better job on my skin than La Prairie could ever do. And that's okay. You know what I mean? And that's why we need, more diversity, even in businesses and founders. And I'm loving to see more Asian brands out there. I want to see more Latin brands out there. I want to see Indian brands out there, because then we can fully enjoy from the rich history and the rich knowledge that's been handed over from generation to generation within all these different sprawling and beautiful cultures.
I mean, boom, right there. There's like, no, honestly, like, preach. And it's just taken way too long. It's 2020.
And then because when you say anything, people tell you being divisive, right? That's why I get really mad at this whole situation. It's same thing with Trump going like, oh, don't do diversity trainings in school because it's divisive. I'm like, that is just such an idea of privilege. Of course it's divisive, because it's not divisive, it's uncomfortable for you to hear. That's what it is. And you can't be bothered in just indulging in discomfort, because it's not your problem. It doesn't affect you. But here's the problem about diversity, and the issue about diversity and the need for inclusivity is all of our problem. And people still can't get that straight, right? It is all of our problem for many reasons. Economically is our problem. When one of us fails, we all fail. That's just the truth. So all this energy people are spending fighting each other, racism, do you know how much better the world would be if we didn't have this and we could just do what the ancient tribes used to do, which was trade with each other? Yes, they conquered each other, but it was fair game. They weren't conquering based on color of skin. They were like, if you're weak, we're gonna conquer you. Like, bitch, we ain't taking that personal, right? If you have ceramic and we need the ceramic, we'll come buy it from you. And that's how the world used to operate for the longest time, actually longer than it operated this way, because this system of kind of white supremacy only started really in the 16th century. It kicked off around the 15th century with the fall of a lot of the great African empires. And then the white man sort of capitalized on that and jumped in like a shark to claim that land and claim business, because it was a commercial decision. People became equity. As America was developing, they needed way more manpower than they could do. And so it became like the most lucrative trade in the world, slaves and moving people around, because people became agricultural equipment. The only downside is they treated people worse than you will actually treat them agricultural equipment. And that ushered in this whole new generation of division, fighting. And it's like, look, we had thousands of years where we operated like normal people and nobody cared about color of skin, and we've only had 450 years where we have. So we can undo it. It's something that it was a learned behavior. We can unlearn it, and the only way we can unlearn it is by bringing out the facts, speaking about it openly, and then doing something about it consciously, because unfortunately this war has been built both consciously and unconsciously and subconsciously.
Yeah, 100%, which is the perfect segue. So pull up or shut up. So yes. You created that movement, which has completely gone viral, and thank God. So I know that was after the murder of George Floyd in June. Yes. And it was a call to action after Blackout Tuesday.
Yes, it launched the day after. Exactly. Because you know what? I saw what was going to happen. I mean, as I call it, Black Tile Tuesday gave a lot of opportunity for performative allyship, right? It's easy for a person to post a black square. What's harder for people to do is to look at themselves and go like, what biases do I have and what are the consequences of my biases? And then being mortified about understanding that. And that's a part that a lot of people skip. There's a lot of people going out there protesting who don't even understand. Because firstly, some of them believe they're immune to biases. And this is what we find in companies. Companies in particular, we can't even use that excuse for, because I keep going, companies are the custodians of economic participation, right? Segregation ended a long time ago. We were supposed to be living in an integrated society, but they have not made this happen, right? We live in a capitalist society. It's 101. You know, you buy stuff so that you get hired, and then you make more money so you can buy more stuff. It's like a whole cycle for everybody except the Black community, where everybody wants our dollar, everybody wants the Black culture, but nobody wants the Black people, right? That's just how this thing works. And we have to stop that. You know, Black unemployment in this country is horrific. And the problem when I looked at the murder of George Floyd, I felt like, yes, police brutality is a big issue. Yes, we need to focus on criminal justice reform. But one of the conversations that wasn't happening enough was cause, right? I feel police brutality is an effect, it's not the cause. It's not the cause, right? The cause is marginalization. That's why when police come in, they assume you're a thug when you're Black, right? You're Black, no, you have to be a thug. Why? Because they know their companies ain't employing you. You ain't got a job. You're not going to be a CEO. You're going to be a thug, right? So it's cause and effect, because the cause is the marginalization. Because, right now in America, there's only 3 Black CEOs in the Fortune 500 list. 3, only 3. I can literally count them like that, right? There's 0 women. And in the history of the Fortune 500 list, there's only ever been 2 Black women who's ever made it to CEO of a Fortune 500 company. That's ridiculous. Right? You look at even the numbers between 10% college graduates, corporate participation, 8%. Where did the 2% go to? And now remember, these are people who have taken student loans, because we don't come from privileged families. A lot of Black people in America, due to law and legislation in this country, let's forget about, because a lot of times you have some white people go like, oh, but it's your fault. No, bitch, it was not our fault, right? Because literally every time Black people built anything, it got burnt down. It got burnt to the ground. They were written in law where you could buy houses, where you couldn't buy houses. So all the places where houses actually appreciated, you were not allowed, not because you didn't have the money to, you were not allowed to buy houses there. Right. So, let's talk about segregation was only abolished when 1954. That's not a long time ago. That's my mother's lifetime. So before then, it was actually illegal not to have people. And even though it got abolished, for the next 15 years, they were still fighting to actually put that in place, because a lot of people were like, yes, yeah, you can have that in law, but it didn't happen out here. Right. So let's think about it. It's only been in the last 40 years that Black people have been able to legally do a lot of, white people couldn't even marry Black people as of 50 years ago in this country. 50 years. That's not a long time ago. I'm 33. You're over 40, right? You're 42, right? When you were, 8 years before you were born, it was illegal for a Black person to marry a white person, right? So you already coming from circumstances where your parents haven't built wealth. There are very few Black people whose parents have built wealth to be able to pay for your college education. Meanwhile, white kid can just like, go, and parent pays for the education. If they want to do it, they do it. And if they don't, they don't, right? Now, what is the incentive for a Black kid to go take up all of those college debt when you know that very likely you're not going to get a job, right? And then now society pigeonholes you into this place where the only successful people you see are rappers, dancers, singers, athletes, right? So if you're a 10-year-old Black kid, what would be more attractive for you to do? Go and try it to be a accountant. You don't even know what the hell accountants do a lot of times, because maybe nobody in your family has been an accountant before, right? Or go and try and be Beyonce. Most people are going to choose Beyonce. So we're already having problems in college participation. And then when people even slug it through, get those college loans, get out on the other end, 2% of them cannot find a job, right? They have to drop off through the cracks. Now, 8% find a job, but when it comes to management roles, it drops all the way to 3.2%. Now that's real withering off. It's like, right? And then when it gets into C-suite and like CEO level, it's less than 1%. There are 615 billionaires in this country and only 6 are Black? What do you like? It's crazy. So the economic disparity of the Black community in this country is at pandemic level. It is a human rights issue, because every company essentially who says the equal opportunity employer, Black people should actually put together a class action lawsuit, because they're not. And the data shows that you're not. So you can be crying about biases and whatever, but here's the facts. And when all the companies pulled up, people could see it. What is your excuse? Even the ones purporting to be, we're an inclusive company, some of them couldn't even pull up because they knew it would be scandal of the biggest proportion, because they market heavily to Black people. They're supposed to be blazing a trail for inclusivity, except when it comes to actually employing the people. You want to get their money, but you don't want to give back into the community. And I think that was, for me, the call to action and why I needed to do something, because we've been having this conversation for a long time, but nothing's going to change. You know, same thing. Companies are getting better and better at performative activism and performative allyship. It's this case with Nike, right? George Floyd happens. They release a new commercial. Don't do it. Everybody's like, go stand up. Oh, Nike, 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 Nike. Okay. Yeah. Are you aware that Nike's, team is 77% white? Are you aware that the person who's writing "don't do it" probably doesn't even understand what the problem he's telling people not to do is, but it's good for business. So let's just throw another commercial out there. Oh, Kaepernick has problems with the NFL. Oh, let's go back Kaepernick. You didn't back Kaepernick because you enjoy his cause. You don't even understand his cause. You're a bunch of rich white people sitting up there. You have no clue what's going on. The reason you did that, he was going to sell out, because the Black community stood behind him. So this was a good opportunity for us all to start separating that. What is performative and what's real? And if you want to be part of the solution, be part of the solution. If you want to be a part of the problem, the title is in the name, then shut the F up. So either pull up for real and do the right things that you should have been doing 20 years ago, and put the work in, or just zip it. Just sit it out, and that's why I'm happy you see this second wave with Breonna Taylor and everything going on. Most companies started out. And I'm like, exactly how if you're not going to do something for real, then sit it out. So it's actually been good, because it's been very humbling for these companies. And now they're all very conscious of going, oh, I don't want to, because, and thinking things through even before they do it, and actually trying to put in the work, as opposed to rush up to social media so that you can get some brownie points with Gen Z, who are very conscious about ethical brands and sell more products. We're not letting that happen anymore. We're not going to let people continue to exploit us, appropriate us, and then profit off our pain.
Yeah, I mean, and it's 4 months since, 4 months have passed. Do you feel like, I guess you're doing this, but what would you tell those brands now? How do we keep it?
Because they've been all listening and learning for the last 3 months. And it's like, okay, so you're done with your listening and learning sessions. What have you learned, right? Because for a lot of brands, they've gone back to business as usual. They've tried a little bit and then gone, oh, it's too hard, right? Because here's the biggest complaint I get. Oh, we advertised a role and no Black person applied. Okay, great. Oh, so now you've done all the work and nothing happened. It's almost, oh, but Black people didn't apply. Why would they? What have you done to show them that you're a place they want to apply to, right? What have you done to show that you're an employer that they want to be in? And then you're not just attracting them in because you're trying to check a tick box, and then you're going to traumatize them when they come into the organization. How many Black people have you promoted? Let's ask you that question, because these are your own talents, right? How many of them have you promoted in this time? How many of them have you put into programs to foster their leadership and foster their talent? No, you want to run outside and go find somebody, another person has put work into, so that they can come into your organization and boost your numbers up so you can tick, I look really good, and you can move on. That's not how it works. I think companies right now are stuck because this is a problem they can't throw money at. Every other problem companies have, they can write a big check and it will go away. This problem, they cannot write a big check to make it go away. They actually have to do the work. And this is why I think a lot of companies are now experiencing that fatigue, because firstly, they just want somebody, give me the answer and I can pay you, and fix it. Just fix it, and just, do I need to pay a consultant $500,000? Unfortunately, this is not a problem Bain can solve for them. This is not a BCG problem to solve. This is not a McKinsey problem to solve. And now they're stuck, because that is what they do every time there's a problem. Climate change, let's get Bain in. Give me a white paper, I'm going to pay you $1 million. And so Bain brings them out in their best MBAs who've never worked in a corporate before. They come bring in this theoretical crap, put it into the business. All of us who work in the business have to suffer for it, implementing things that weren't going to work in the first place, because the person who built it has never, ever seen the reality of executing great theoretical ideas, right? So this is why companies are stuck right now, because they can't just throw a check at this. They can't just call Boston Consulting Group to go give me an answer, and they come with an answer. So what are they doing? Reaching out to their Black employees and going fix it, and then walking off. And at best, hiring a chief diversity officer and go like, tick, we hired a chief diversity officer, here are your KPIs, do it, and they walk off. But responsibility starts from the top. The bias and training has to start from the CEO. Unless the CEO understands that, nothing is going to happen. And unfortunately, a lot of the leadership team are absorbing themselves, going like, the others have biases, not us. No, you all have biases. And until you sort of educate yourself, and I keep telling people, everybody wants to start externally by recruiting. No, do the work in your company first. do the work in your company, and then bring people in, because recruitment is not just about recruiting. You have to foster these people and develop them and make them stay and flourish and nourish. And the problem here is you're going to run out and hire a bunch of people and scar them even more. So now you're going to have even a bigger problem. The next time you apply, you put jobs out there, they don't want to apply, which is where a lot of these guys are going through. You know, like people are just not applying for those jobs because they just like, firstly, I don't have a level playing field. And secondly, your culture is toxic, and I don't want to be there. So I think companies just need to take their time. This is not a problem that's going to go away in a month or two. It was built over 400 years. So we don't have 400 years to resolve it. But, you know, with the right steps, if they stop trying to just show boats and everybody, you know, it's all about being, you know, so performative, and spend the time, invest that time, and each of them invest their own, like, you know, really commit to it. Because this journey of being an ally or an advocate, you have to commit to it, which means it starts with education. You cannot fix what you don't know, right? According to James Baldwin, not everything that is addressed can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's addressed. And that's critical.
Yes, 100%. And Rachel Cargill, I love as well, with the great unlearn. Like you kind of referenced it before, that it's all the unlearning we have to do as well.
Exactly.
I wanted to, so my signature, I mean, I feel like we could talk about this for so long. I mean, there's so much to discuss. So, you know, because the theme of the podcast is share a voice and how you use your voice. I mean, I feel like you've had so many of these kind of mic drop moments in your career so far. You're so wise beyond your years, and I feel like you've lived so many lives. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
So like, what would you say, you know, I love to ask all my guests what your mic drop moment is. And I think it's important to clarify that it doesn't have to be a moment where you won awards or recognition. It doesn't have to be about external validation, but rather more a moment where you felt, you know, like, okay, boom, like this is my purpose. I'm living my truth.
Yes. For me, you know, there wasn't a particular moment because it was a gradual build. Like I said, I turned 30 and I started to care about identity. I started to ask the fundamental question, who am I? You know, and then realizing I had no answers. And I don't think people understand what it feels like to be Black, right? I'm not even Black American. I'm Black African. I'm from Nigeria, and everybody feels like you've been rooted. I know where my village is. I know where my ancestors have been buried for hundreds of years. But even in then, everything that I know is also a lie. It's not true. I don't know anything about my history. And that was confronting for me at a point in terms of what is real and what's not. The education we get in history lesson in Nigeria is this. The white man came, you were savages, and we helped you and we saved you. Mary Celeste, stop the killing of twins because you guys killed twins. Your ancestors ate us because they were cannibals, and they were savages, and we came there and we saved you, right? Lord Lugard created Nigeria because it was Niger area, you know, and his wife created the first anthem, right? So these are all the things that you hear about how you inadequate, how your entire lineage is a dirty bloodline, to the point where growing up, I was adamant I was never going to marry a Black man. Not possible. I wanted to go through a cleansing of my bloodline. And I had actually mapped it out. If I marry a white man and then my kid marries another white man, by the fourth generation, nobody would even know there was any Black in there, right? This is the kind of thing. I didn't even process this until I was 30 that I had those thoughts. When I had been married twice, they were always to white men. Never to a Black. I never even really dated a Black man at that point in time. So I started asking myself fundamental questions about self-hate, you know, how we feel about ourselves. You know, you're born, and especially as a Black woman, and you know immediately that you're wrong, but not wrong. You're different, but not different good, you're different bad. You know, your lips are too big, your body shape is not okay, your skin is too dark. So if you bleach, then you're better. But if you don't bleach, then you're really bad. You have to defend yourself to everybody, including your own people, right? And so it's a lot to actually wear. And for me, it's a process to unpack all of that, because it's a lot, to the point where it stresses people to the point they don't even bother. Not because they don't know that they can unpack it, but it is such a process to unpack that. And so for me, that's really what led me down the path that I am on right now. It was learning. And it was learning about my culture. And I started to learn a lot and just discover, and that brought pride. That brought pride in myself as a woman. That brought pride in my Black, that I was finally proud to say, yeah, I'm Black. I'm proud of it. I'm Black and I'm beautiful, right? Because I started learning, no, we weren't savages. No, we weren't. You know, essentially Nigeria, the top part of Nigeria was part of the Songhai Empire. Nobody talks about Songhai Empire and how that relates, you know, the kingdom of Ghana, which was Gold Coast. It was so rich in gold. Mali, the richest man who's ever existed on the planet, past and present, is a guy called Mansa Musa. Who was a Malian king, right? And we traded with the whole world. We always traded with the whole world. Like his castle in what was ancient Gaul, which is still in present day Mali, was booked by the Spaniards because he brought them in. We were horsemen. We traded horses. We created a new way of breeding horses that is still adapted all over the world. Horses wearing armor came from us, you know, and this is just even the Songhai Empire. Talk about Kush, talk about Aksum Empire. These are all ancient kingdoms that lasted all the way. Songhai lasted all the way into the 15th century until the transatlantic slave trade really started and then went crazy. And that was why colonialism came in, because we always got told colonials came in to save you. No, they came in because we were trying to farm human beings. And that's why they came there to acquire territory so that they owned the human beings that they were actually taking. It had nothing to do with education or religion. That was literally them. Pretty much as a company, you acquire a company and then you change everybody's email address to @esilota.com, right? That was essentially why they came there. So to start thinking those things and unpacking those things and not sounding crazy like you're a conspiracy theorist, right? Because people start thinking you're wearing tinfoil, but that's the truth, because you start finding old scrolls like the Timbuktu Chronicles, one of them, Tariq el-Fattash, that literally lays out the entire history of West Africa for as much as it can, because a lot of the scripts were all burnt and destroyed. So for me, that was really my moment, because it was all of a sudden the reclamation of a lost heritage, the pride in what is a very, very noble and a royal bloodline, the understanding that the color of my skin is repulsive to people, not because nature made it so, but because it was a commercial decision. You cannot sell somebody agricultural equipment that you make them relate to emotionally. It's too traumatic for the human experience. So what do? You dehumanize them, right? And unfortunately, it's lasted for hundreds of years, to the point where we're having basic conversations that is unnatural for humans to have. Like, why do you hate me just because I'm Black? It is not natural. You should hate me because you're trying to conquer my kingdom, because I have something that you need, not just because of the color of my skin. It was man-made and it was made for profit. And I think those realizations was a drop mic moment for me, because that led to everything I did now, because it laid the path that my whole life mission is going to be done in service of celebrating my culture, inspiring other people to be proud in a way that I was never proud. You know, if I had a daughter today, I would literally make her walk around like she's royalty, because she is damn royalty, right? I will make her walk around like it. I'm going to tell her all these great stories. I'm going to tell her the true history, not the fake history. And it's why I set up UOMA Beauty. It's about, let's create a culture, let's create a tribe where we can celebrate differences, where we can celebrate ourselves, where we can start mapping a path to resetting the world. It's why I did Pull Up for Change. It's why everything I've done has happened. So I think for me, that discovery, which didn't happen in one day, it was a process, it was a journey, it was painful, it was beautiful. I tell people UOMA Beauty was therapy for me, because that was the process in building UOMA Beauty as a brand. And that was my drop mic moment.
I love that. You know, to end on kind of on an optimistic note, I know that you're an optimist, and I've heard you say that you're a dreamer. So what are you hopeful for today, the next 4 months? And I mean, I guess the next 3 months of the year, which is crazy.
Yes.
And
yes,
you know, for 2021, like what's your hope?
Yes, you know what? I think the year we've had is quite hard to hope, right? Because all we know is that nothing's certain. Everything is uncertain, right? But that's not a bad thing. You know, a lot of people complain about this so much. I'm actually, no, for a person like me, that's where I thrive. You know, when there's chaos is where, you know, true leaders emerge. You know, it's easy to try and lead when everything's okay. You know, that's the Donald Trump situation. He came in and inherited a really good place. You know, Obama had got us from a depression and a recession all the way into a blossoming economy. So of course it's easy to come in there and ride that wave and go beautiful. And until a pandemic hits and it's like, what are you going to do? Oh, I don't know. Like so I think for me, it's that beauty in chaos. Everybody takes it for granted because people want things easy and laid out before them. But I've never been that person. I think, you know, my purpose and my calling is to be that person that helps people organize when they can't. And so in times like this, I don't, you know, it's hard to actually say if I go like I have no hopes right now or aspiration. It's really hard to say that. because I don't. I literally am taking every day as it comes, and that's the beauty of it. And I think, honestly, that's sometimes the beauty of life, because sometimes when you think too far ahead, you stress yourself about things you cannot control. And that's one thing I know about life: you cannot control it. And the way I survive and the way I thrive is, once again, when I talked about opportunity and preparation, right? I focus on the things that are within my circle of influence. And the rest, I don't even bother with. I go, these are the things I can control right here. I can control waking up and being happy. I can control waking up and being optimistic. I can control waking up and loving my dog to a degree that people actually think is completely creepy. That I can control, because it gives me peace of mind and sanity looking after something else. It shows me the beauty in unity, that I am living side by side with somebody I can't even talk to. But we manage to talk, and we manage to communicate, and we manage to have a bond that's stronger than I have with any human being on the planet, right? And so those are the things that keep me happy. You know, the fact that I can just wake up every day and I don't know what's going to happen. And some days crazy happens. Some days I get better news than I even know what to do with. And I'm like, I don't even know how to feel, you know? And that's the beauty of the journey of life. So for me, unfortunately, I don't have a big statement of I want to do this or that. Sometimes I tell people my innovation calendar, Lord, it always moves, because I'm not a person who like, boom, this is the future, let's stick it in there and then let's work to it. Because for me, I actually feel like sometimes that stifles greatness, because I couldn't have imagined the life I'm living today. I couldn't, even if I tried. I couldn't. So if I was to have been following a plan, I would have probably been, I want to be an SVP in a company, and I want to be in the C-suite of a company, whatever. It would be very mediocre dreams that I have, like compared to what I'm doing now, which is literally building a whole new generation and building a whole empire, right? At the same time, whilst being completely blazing a trail for a new form of ethical disruption, right? And so I couldn't have dreamt this up. So for me, I try not to, because you put unnecessary pressure on yourself for things you cannot control, and that's insanity. So I focus on what I can control, which is smile, and I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I know that after this, I'm going to get a few emails done. I'm going to make myself a kick-ass dinner, and I'm going to try and get me some sleep, and that's good enough for me for today, and tomorrow I aspire to the next day, and every day is a gift. And so I have a very different approach to life in terms of just taking each day as it comes and celebrating each win and fighting for everything that is out there and not leaving anything unfought for, but then be grateful and just proceed with a lot of gratitude for, even in crazy times, the beauty that still is life and the gift that it is to even be alive. And those are the things I focus on.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And, please keep shaking shit up and just breaking out of the boxes, because it's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.